Before Carl Crusher Creel became the walking chemistry experiment known as the Absorbing Man, he was just another tough kid from the Bronx with a chip on his shoulder and fists that spoke louder than words. Raised in a rough neighborhood, Carl's early life was shaped by hardship and grit. His mother, a rare source of encouragement, urged him to set higher expectations for himself, but her death when he was young left a void that his father filled with abuse. Despite the dysfunction, Carl's father did pass down a few useful skills, including basic automotive mechanics and, more fatefully, a pair of boxing gloves. By the age of 16, Carl had had enough. After finally standing up to his father, he was kicked out of the house and left to fend for himself. He split his time between the streets and the gym. He would break into cars and homes to survive, while channeling his rage into boxing. The ring became his sanctuary, a place where he could unleash the fury simmering beneath the surface. His aggressive style earned him the nickname Crusher, and soon he was squaring off against notable opponents, including battling Jack Murdoch, the father of Matt Murdock. But Carl's skills weren't just drawing the attention from boxing promoters. They caught the eye of the local criminal underworld. His raw power and street smarts made him a perfect enforcer, and he quickly found himself working for crime bosses like the Owl. Though he felt remorse for the innocent people hurt during his shakedowns, Carl believed he was far too gone to change his course. He bounced from minor offenses to more serious charges, eventually ending up behind bars. It was in there where Loki, the Norse god of mischief, selected Carl as an unknowing pawn in one of his many schemes against Thor. Disguised and working behind the scenes, Loki slipped a magical potion into Carl's drinking water. That enchanted elixir, infused with sorcery from the Nine Realms, granted Carl a terrifying new ability: the power to absorb physical properties of anything he touched: wood, stone, steel, and even energy itself. Overnight, Carl transformed from a two-bit thug into something else entirely. No longer just a man, he became a living weapon, a wrecking ball with legs, and like any newly minted supervillain, he did what came naturally. He broke out of prison and started smashing things. The moment Carl escaped from prison, newly empowered and confused by the strange current of strength humming through his body, the world felt smaller, fragile almost. The concrete beneath his feet had never seemed so alive before, not until he touched it and became it. His flesh was roughening, hardening, shifting into solid stone. It wasn't just a change, it was transcendence. The Bruiser was now a force of nature, a man who could become anything. And like any man handed unchecked power without the tools to wield it wisely, Carl did what came naturally. He ran toward the fight. Now, you would think he'd choose an easy first target to assert his dominance, right? No. He chose Thor. The clash was immediate and cataclysmic. Carl, now calling himself the Absorbing Man, matched Thor blow for blow. When Mjolnir struck steel, Carl became steel. When it hit stone, he became a walking boulder. The more punishment he took, the more power he siphoned. Loki watched from the shadows, pleased. His petty war with Thor was now through the fists of a former convict. But Carl was no tactician. He fought with fury, not foresight. And while he could mirror strength, he couldn't mimic strategy. In their first battle, Thor ultimately tricked him, creating an illusion that caused Carl to absorb the properties of helium gas. His body, now light as air, floated helplessly into the atmosphere. He was neutralized, not by brute strength, but by clever misdirection. It was a humiliation that would haunt him. Still, villains like Carl don't stay gone. He crash-landed, recovered, and returned more determined, and more dangerous. Each defeat made him angrier, more desperate to prove that he deserved the power he'd been given. What followed were a series of battles across the Marvel landscape: skirmishes with the Hulk, tangles with Daredevil, standoffs with the Avengers. Each time, he leaned harder into the raw brutality he knew. Each time, he evolved, learning, if not humility, then at least cunning. But in these early post-escape years, something deeper simmered beneath the bluster. Carl wasn't just trying to win fights. He was trying to matter. To stand toe-to-toe with gods and heroes and say, "You can't ignore me." A man who had once been nothing, a nobody scrapping in back-alley rings for a quick payday, was now a threat on the cosmic scale. And yet, at his core, he remained the same angry man, bruised and chasing the feeling of being unbreakable. One of the most significant shifts in Carl's life came not through fists or fury, but through connection. When he met Mary McFerrin, or commonly known as Titania, it wasn't love at first sight. It was something messier, more visceral. They were both hardened, both shaped by rejection and rage, but yet also drawn to each other like wounded animals, recognizing a kindred wound. Their relationship was a blend of sharp edges and soft moments. With her, Carl found more than a partner in crime. He found someone who saw him, the scared boy beneath the stone skin. And in protecting her, he began to redefine what strength meant. Still, his instincts often betrayed him. He remained a brawler first, a thinker second. He clashed with the Hulk time and time again, not just because of their physical parity, but because of something deeper: an unspoken kinship. Both were shaped by accidents, both were cursed with monstrous gifts. Their fights were thunderous, but in those collisions, Carl sometimes saw a mirror. A man like himself, trying to find control in a body built for destruction. But time and time again, Carl found himself being used, enlisted into grander conflicts, manipulated by gods or cosmic tyrants who saw his powers as tools and not traits. At times, he embraced this, joining wars far beyond his understanding, swinging enchanted weapons, reshaping his body into alien elements. He even stood in the orbit of beings like Galactus and dared to touch what no mortal should. It wasn't just about absorbing power anymore, it was about proving he belonged, that he could reach into the realm of gods and leave a mark. But those victories never lasted. Even with all of his strength, Carl remained a man undone by uncertainty. There were moments where something in him softened. He paused before striking, where he let heroes go, and where he looked around and wondered what the fight was really for. At times, he even tried to change. He took work helping people. He hunted monsters not for a paycheck, but because he could. He even stood beside heroes he once tried to kill. It wasn't redemption in a traditional sense. He still bore the weight of his past, but it was effort, real, painful effort, and that meant something. Carl may never be remembered as one of Marvel's most notable figures, but he wasn't born a genius. He wasn't gifted a sense of purpose. He didn't fall into tragedy like so many sympathetic heroes before him. Instead, he chose violence. He walked willingly into the shadows of the world, fists raised, jaw clenched, determined to take what the world wouldn't give him freely. And yet, that's exactly what made him so vital. Carl is the embodiment of raw human struggle, not just the physical, but the inner, quieter battles too. The fight against being seen as nothing more than a mistake. The fight to be more than the worst thing you've ever done. In a universe filled with men who soar and gods who thunder, Carl represents those who crawl, stumble, lash out, and still try, however imperfectly, to change. His power may be otherworldly, but the man beneath is achingly real. Someone who became what he touched because he never knew who he truly was. He is a living metaphor, yes, but also a warning and a challenge. His story asks, what happens when power is handed to someone unprepared to wield it? What do we become when we let the world define us by what we can do instead of who we want to be? And most of all, can redemption exist not in just one grand gesture, but in the painful, slow attempt to be better, even after decades of failure? In the end, Carl never stopped being a threat, but he also never stopped being a man. He was flawed, furious, he tried learning. That in itself is a kind of heroism and a legacy worth absorbing.